Hey everyone, John here. Welcome back to part 2 of my exploration into the Mocha Pro 3D camera solver. In the last tutorial we took a look at this shot, and this was pretty easy for both Mocha Pro and the After Effects 3D camera tracker to handle. But in this tutorial we're going to take a look at this shot, and this time things are a little different. After Effects didn't have such an easy time with this shot, but Mocha Pro has the tools to be able to handle this shot with ease. I'm going to show you how I set up some 3D text in After Effects, and I'm also going to show you how I set up the same kind of look in Blender and some of the advantages of doing that. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, so here in After Effects, if we look at this shot, you can see there's a lot of water around the subject and obviously distant mountains and clouds, and we don't want to track any of that really. We are going to track this little area here. We'll talk about that in a moment, but obviously the key area here is this jetty. So let's jump into Mocha Pro and see how Mocha Pro handles this. Alright, so I've already got this set up. So the first thing to do in Mocha Pro, and this is one of the great features, is to tell Mocha Pro to only track where you want it to track, okay? And in this case, we only want it to track the jetty. So what I've done in the Track tab, I've created a big mask, or a big spline, all the way around basically everything that's not jetty. So the entire scene other than the jetty, just leaving the jetty. And I didn't track this, I just set a couple of keyframes. So I just did this manually. It was very easy just to set a few keyframes. You can see the green keyframes there. And that's going to hold out all of this area here. So the track can just focus on this area here. And what I've also done is you can see I have actually tracked the sun here, where the sun is just disappearing behind those mountains or islands, I guess. And that's this one here. So you can see I've tracked that in because we're going to use that in the 3D camera solver as well as a feature point. So we'll come across to the Camera Solve tab, and I'm just going to turn on 3D. There's my feature points, and you can see my feature here, the sun, is pink and the rest of these are green. And notice how there's no tracking points, no feature points on the water. They're all isolated to the jetty. And this was very fast, this track, and look at the average error rate, 0.61. Rock solid. I only had to do this once and it was rock solid. Really nice. And in order to get the 3D camera solver to only focus on the jetty, what I had to do was just check this little box here to make the not jetty spline a mask. And that way the camera solver ignores that area. And to have the solver recognize our sun track, I've turned on the gear here. So once that's all set up in the Track tab, anything you don't want to be tracked, you click this little button here to mask that out. And what you do want to be tracked, you turn on the gear here. And that's the result there. What I've done in After Effects and in Blender is I've linked a light to this point. So we actually have a sunlight that's actually casting light onto the text. They're really quite effective. And if we just turn on the ground plane, you can see I've set the ground plane. And just by way of review, just by selecting a few of the points, feature points, and just clicking Align to Ground, and then just selecting where I want the origin to be and clicking Make Origin. There's so few steps when using the 3D camera solver in Mocha. I'm just not forgetting how to do it each time I use it. Alright, so once that's done, I just selected this feature point here and I selected the origin, export camera data, and if I'm using After Effects, just choosing this option here, clicking selected and clicking copy to clipboard. Okay, just a bit of review there. I'm going to close that up now. And back here in After Effects, coming up to the edit menu, and choosing Paste Mocha Camera, just remembering that you have to install that plugin first. So once that was done, we got the sun center, which is a little null here. You see that's tracking that perfectly. And we got the Mocha camera and the feature point for the origin. So those three things were imported, ready to add our 3D objects in the composition. And what I did was I added some text. So I'm just going to turn that on. And there's my 3D text. And once again, I'm using the advanced 3D renderer here in After Effects. And just as I did in the first tutorial in this series, I've used an HDR to light this text and used Photoshop to save a HDR file format from a still image. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, definitely check out tutorial 1 in this series. Here's the HDR here. And just solo that. So just a still frame, saved it in HDR format, and that's being used with the environment light. You can see under light options source, there's my sunset.hdr. So that's giving us the color for the text. We'll just turn that off. You can see the text goes black. So we're getting just a general sort of average color value from this. If I come into the text and once again, as I showed in the first tutorial, just increase the specular shininess, then we get full reflection. So you can actually see the reflection of the water there. And once again, this is also not a 360-degree HDR. So, you know, I don't really have much flexibility with it, but I'm just using it to give me the color of the scene, basically. So it's just a really nice, effective way to light and colorize your 3D objects in your advanced renderer scenes. All right, so for the sunlight, you can see I've got a parallel light and I've linked that to that null. So let me just quickly show you how I did that. So where's my sun center? There's my sun center there. Okay. So I'm just going to turn off this parallel light here. I'm going to make a new light and choose parallel. And to get that to sit right on that null, I'm going to hold down Shift and grab the parent link pick whip and then just choose sun center. There you go. So that snaps that to the parent, which is the sun center null. Okay. And let's just take a look at this in maybe top view. So where's our parallel light? It's way back here. There we go. Where is it? There it is. We've got to grab the point of interest and then just point it at our text. Okay, got to bring that right out. I'm just using the space bar to grab the hand grabber tool there. And we're going to bring that right down and point that. I could probably use an expression to do this, but I'm going to drag it out manually like that. There we go. So as you can see, we just close this up again and just come back to 100%. We're getting that specular ping, that ping of light on the text from that light. Like that. And it's sitting in, you know, in the correct place in 3D and moving with the shot, which I think is really quite effective. Really nice. So it's great to be able to use the Mocha Pro camera solver to choose the features in your shot that you want to add things like lights to. I'm just going to get rid of that one and just bring back my original. It's a little less bright. Okay, so now let's talk about shadows. Now we talked about shadow catching in the previous tutorial, and I did put a little pop-up warning or note that after I recorded that tutorial, the After Effects beta came out with shadow catching for the advanced 3D renderer. And I wanted to take a look at that in this tutorial. So let's just talk about that for a sec. So we've got a layer here, and I'm not in the After Effects beta at the moment in this version. This is the release version. So I can create a shadow on this solid, but I can't use the solid as a shadow catcher. If I just twirl that open, you can see Accept Shadows is on, but Only is disabled. So as soon as I click Only, I lose my shadow. But over here in the After Effects beta, which I've just switched across to, you can see if I click on Accept Shadows, now we have Only, and the disabled note has disappeared. And there you go, the solid's disappeared, and all we can see is those contact shadows, which is really nice. So it's great to have shadows with Shadow Catcher working in the advanced renderer. Currently it doesn't appear to be working with other lights, which is still a little bit of a limitation, but this is definitely a good start. But of course, back here in the real world, in the release version of After Effects, we still don't have that feature yet. Coming soon, but not quite there. So what are our options? Well, one option is to use something like Blender and export your Mocha Pro camera solve data into Blender, do it all in Blender, render it, and just bring it back into After Effects. So let's take a look at how I did that. Here's the finished look in After Effects. You can see the text is a little different. It's a different font, slightly different feel to this. But notice, if I just zoom in here, look at these beautiful directional shadows. Now they were created using a sunlight inside of Blender and a shadow catcher under the text. So let's just first of all look at what we have to export to Blender. I'm just going to open up Mocha Pro. And it's basically exactly the same technique as I showed you for After Effects. It's just a different format, Universal Scene Description or FBX. So choosing one of those, and I'm going to close that up, come across to Blender. And here in Blender, I'm just going to remove these default objects. Come up to the File menu and choose Import, USD. And there's my exported USDA. There's my little scene. So here in 4.1, I can just click on the Toggle Camera View, and there we go. So with the camera selected, coming down to, let's throw that up, coming down to the camera, and clicking on Background Images, Add Image, Movie Clip. Going to grab my shot. There we go. Look at that. Perfect. So easy. And of course, you could use the 3D tracking in Blender. I watched a tutorial on it. I haven't actually used it myself, but it seemed like there was a lot of steps to get this to work in Blender. I think I would probably not use it. I'd be much more likely to use the Mocha Pro 3D camera solver. It's so fast. And so far, I've been getting excellent results. So let's just take a look at this. We've got all of the individual tracking points. They've come in as little pieces of geometry. And we could just turn those off just by holding down the Shift key and clicking the eye there. We've got the sun here. There's our little sun point. Our origin is right where we set the origin in Mocha Pro. And everything's ready to go. So let me just show you how I would add some text in here. Now, because the 3D cursor's right where I want it, I can just press Shift A to add some text. And it's huge text, you can see it there. So coming to font, just going to hold down Shift and just scale that down like that. And we want to rotate this. So if I hit R and X 90, like that, you can probably just shift it into position a little bit, just slide it across. And under geometry, just add a bit of extrusion like that, and maybe a little bit of a bevel. It's pretty easy to do text here in Blender. There we go. It needs a bit of kerning, but you can see that's rock solid. And definitely a good start. What about the light? We'll look at the shadow catcher in a moment, but what about the light? So we've got our tracking point there, the center of the sun. So if we make a new light, first of all, what we want to do is we want to select that point. There's a couple of ways we could do this. If we press Shift S, we can say cursor to selected. So in Blender, when you make a new object, it's created at the 3D cursor. So if I press Shift A now and choose light sun, there we go, there's our sun. And we want to point it at the text. So if we press Shift T, we can just get that. I think that's going to be about right. I might have to look at this in another view. There we go. Point that at the text. Go back to my camera view. Perfect. So that'll be casting a shadow onto our shadow catcher, which I'll make now. So I want to bring my shadow catcher back to that point. Once again, press Shift S, cursor to active, like that. I might just come back to here. Shift A, mesh, plane, and scale this down. And it's going to come up to the viewport shading. At the moment it's in Eevee, so I'm going to choose cycles. You can start to see that shadow. And if we come across to the finished setup here, there's a couple of things to point out. You can see I've got a different font, slightly different look. The color of the text is being created using an HDR. You can see my setup down here. So pretty much it's just white text. And with the HDR, we get the lighting, we get the color. We've got the shadow catcher here, but I haven't actually made it a shadow catcher yet. Let me just show you how you do that. If I just click on the plane, under mask, visibility, just turn on shadow catcher, and there we go. So that's looking pretty nice. The only other thing to point out with this is we're in cycles view, and you can see the footage. This is a nice little tip. If you just come to the render tab and come down to film, just by checking transparent, you can see the background image that we imported. So once that was all set up, then it's just a case of rendering this out with an alpha channel and bringing it back into After Effects. Finishing touches here in After Effects include a little bit of Mocha Pro just to roto out these posts, the one on the left here and this one on the right, because this occludes the shadow. If I just turn that off, you can see how the shadow actually is sitting on top of those. Just here, you can see that just down the bottom there. So just by going into Mocha Pro and doing a little bit of quick roto work, classic 2D tracking in here and roto. So basically for the first post, just creating, let me just turn that on, just creating a little tracking spline and tracking that forward like that. And then creating a more detailed spline that follows the edges of that post and linking that. So there's post 1 and link to track post 1 track. Let me just turn off the track there. You can see just a couple of little tweaks, a couple of keyframes there just to make it hold that shape correctly. I didn't render the whole thing, just a small section of it. And exactly the same technique for this post as well. So this is post track 2 or post 2, and there's post track 2. So just a few minutes to create those masks. And back here in After Effects, just under matte, just choosing apply matte. You can see the matte there as well. So they just sit in front. And on top of that, just a touch of curves, just to give it a slight grade. And that's the finished look. So yes, there are still limitations with the After Effects advanced renderer. And you know, you got to, once again, as I mentioned in the previous tutorial, decide what you're willing to give up. But if you just ignore all of that and just go straight to Blender or Cinema 4D, for example, you can just do all of this in one of those apps and just import it into After Effects pretty easily. Now in the previous tutorial, we finished off by taking a look at how the After Effects camera tracker handled that shot. Let's now talk about this shot and how this might be handled by the tracker in After Effects. So I've got a basic setup here, and you can see there's my 3D tracking track points. The key issues I had with this were that it wanted to add 3D track points to the water, and obviously they're not going to help with the 3D solve. Now you can, select these points and you can resolve, and that's fine, but that takes a lot of work. Being able to use the mask to occlude all of that area in Mocha Pro was much faster, and the resulting track that I got was a little jumpy. Doesn't look too bad, but the text sort of is jumping around a little bit. You can see it's just sort of jumping up and down. Now I could refine that, but it's going to take a lot more work to do that in the After Effects 3D camera tracker. So in a pinch, you could definitely use it, but if you have Mocha Pro 2024, I would go straight for the 3D camera solver in that because it's faster and more precise. In the next tutorial, we're going to take a look at how I transform this shot using the Mocha Pro 3D camera solver and other Mocha Pro techniques. If you'd like to learn more about Mocha Pro 2024 or download a trial version, visit borisfx.com. But for now, this is John. I'll see you in the next tutorial.